Dulce, Diamond, Crystal, Iris, Amber. These aren't appropriate names for children, okay? You can name them whatever you want, but if you name them the wrong name and for whatever reason you objectify them, there's a possibility you'll do something inappropriate and you should be held accountable to the full extent of the law. Um, there's a slight eye difference in color between these two people, right? So I don't understand how you can get to a place where you objectify a child into a name like Dixie, but there's obviously discrepancies in the facial features, and there may be other things that you don't see. For instance, the eyes might not smile at the same time the rest of the face smiles, as they smile through their teeth. So I'm not going to pretend like I understand micro expressions, but the investigative agency should, and they investigated themselves. So as a lawyer, do you understand what a conflict of interest is? I'm just advocating that we bring in some of the interrogators that do the work that they do to make sure that we've done our due diligence and looking for anyone that is missing. But Isabella Rose Giannulli and Olivia Jade Giannulli are named badly. And I don't want to paint pictures that don't need to exist. But, somebody called someone an ugly name based on features that they may have met, roughly, then I'm sure you can imagine how, with olive eyes, that the mom getting locked up for trying to pay for an opportunity for her daughter to go to school was distasteful, and I have doubts about whether or not the polygraph is being properly administered in other cases. This is my lack of faith in the FBI, and this is what I was working on when the agencies told me that I was going to get dead if I kept asking questions, and I started asking questions about my own family. So I do profile work, and I can't give any more information than that, other than to say that the whole world and the whole country looked at the idea of there being an Olivia Jade and a sister named Isabella, and maybe you see something different than I do. And if you do, then okay. Then I've been bamboozled, right? And how silly will I feel if Isabella Rose's eyes are brown and Olivia Jade's eyes are green? Or that Olivia Jade's eyes change colors. But to objectify a child, for the fashion designer dad to name the one daughter the name of the other eye color. So I'm not going to delve any further into that. I just have some other information that I really think deserves to be looked at. So whether it's the idea of the stepdad of Elon Musk's stepsister, who was also Elon Musk's dad, being married to his stepdaughter, or some of the concepts in what psychosomatic trauma are, I don't want to take cases and mix information, but you might ask why the objectification of a child is dangerous. And I just like to say that they're not looking at some of the signs of abuse. So seizures in some cases and pigeon toe are just two of the signs. Having family members potentially, and I don't know that this is a real person, okay, but if they are, having family members connected that have similar features may be a mechanism for there to be a much, much deeper underlying cause for fear and concern at pausing at concepts that are adult in television. There are a lot of starving people out there that may be trafficked and organ harvested. They may be claiming that people are dying, but there may actually be harvesting of organs and trafficking going on. I don't know when it's a Ken doll and when it's a G.I. Joe. I guess it's just the clothes. I'm not trying to make an art piece or draw too much attention to anything other than the idea that maybe there are people who were watched and then became elements on TV because of the CCTV camera footage that was so much more plentiful and interesting from what they did. This is just a characterization of maybe after the people arrived. How could they do this? I have no idea. But that's a very, very empty facial response from, the idea of some really, really complex concepts that I'm not going to try and read too far into, other than to say it all may be bad TV at this point. There's a lot more sociopathy and so sociopathic behavior, and crying while furious is a really unique concept for me, because that's pouty face and angry face. pouty face, angry face. So you got to be really careful when you go up against the Supreme Courts because they may not give you your birth records or your FOIA records. You know, you may end up.
We are no longer controlling the attitude of the vehicle.
Having somebody that gave a speech on behalf of SpaceX that was actually a commentator also for Neuralink. You know, why wouldn't we use the same publicity team for both groups? Have you guys ever done anything for Neuralink and for SpaceX? Because I had a little capsule that I pulled out of my leg when I was a kid that looked very, very similar to that capsule that you guys are launching into space.
In the test flight, it is expected.
So the idea that NASA has outsourced a lot of its technology from electric motors to spaceships to internet from satellites, multiplied by an inability for the FBI to investigate the eye colors, right? Or to come up with a victim profile. Or to think that a Billy isn't an appropriate name for a girl. A Billy is a goat, right? And Phineas? Well, I mean, if we have a Billy goat and she is a girl, but she connects with being the bad guy, and her brother's name is Phineas. Phineas? How do you pronounce it? Is it Phineas or is it Phineas? Mr. Eilish. If that's really a picture of you, and I doubt it is, and that's not a goat, that's a llama, alpaca. It's a beautiful animal with a Kavanaugh face. Give me the Supreme Court ship. You know, did you guys watch Game of Thrones? Because I didn't. So I don't have a fantasy, and I can polygraph that I don't have a fantasy, and I hate to do this. I really do. But I don't think we should put television like what we've seen up on TV. And these are just a few of the really scary realities for, I mean, I don't think we ever expected to see a Glock on Delta. That's a tragic. I mean, plastic pistols, plastic Ken dolls, plastic Barbie dolls. I have a lot of jokes that I will bring at another time. This was just a really poignant characterization of what I think he may have been looking around in Afghanistan for when they figured out how to get 20 different tracking units on him. So let's just make sure he doesn't go looking for where they're harvesting actual hearts and minds, right? Are they harvesting hearts and minds? Yes, they are. What? I do harvest the hearts and minds. And then we go to Epstein. So, you know, there's a really concerning set of behaviors here, and I really need to polygraph Madalina Kojikari's stepdad because I think without the shadow of a doubt that he knows where she is. And I don't think for a second the FBI can get answers anymore because I'm not sure they're paid to, and it might be dangerous to start asking questions of pedophiles because we have Green Berets getting kicked out of the military. And if George Santos can get into Congress, then I'm not sure how long the rules are going to last, but as long as we have a polygraph and a military, I'd like the ability to take some of these profile characteristics and operate on them. I went to Congress and Senate, and they said there was nothing they could do to help me and that I needed to get a lawyer, and then I got death threats from three-letter agency personnel. So I'm in the wind at this point, and there's a lot. There are 25,000 people a day that are dying from starvation while 15 million loaves of bread worth of grain is burned, and they're genetically modifying our future. Have you ever seen a homogenized milk carton? Because the milk inside it was also homogenized, and there are mono and diglycerides in the food that are animal byproducts, skin, ligaments, eyeballs, organs. Now I've been trying to figure out what made you sick. So between television and watching the pastor's family on TV and seeing the pastor Camden end up a pedophile and having Supreme Court justices that can cry and scream in anger at the same time is maybe one of the most uniquely concerning concepts. This is actually a sign of trauma, so he may have been abused as a kid based on what the amount of musculature connected to his chin is. Not every time, but there may be more musculature here that a camera can see how it moves to know exactly what may have happened to you. But you can't turn around and do it to somebody else and then take a judgeship. Where is our rapey Supreme Court justice going? I'm sure he'll be around for a long time. You're going to be okay. You just got probation, buddy. You didn't report your stepdaughter missing. She doesn't have anyone in the world to represent her. And the FBI is being led by this. And James Comey, who's also latently homosexual, from childhood abuse probably, based on James Comey having that interview with Psaki where his legs were so well crossed. I don't know how his testicles could have fit underneath where he put them. There's nothing quite like knowing the Supreme Court justices are this. Do you think I can get away with posting this on YouTube and then get a fair access to a trial? Do you think that I should expect to be able to go up against dangerous people that very, very clearly abused their kid, right? So I can show you. I should have had it ready, I suppose. Here's the chewed hair. Here's the choker necklace, and here's the sedative exposure in the eyes. Here's the ability to come up with an excuse for why your eyes may show some sedative exposure and maybe why you became a judge. Here's a bunny face, and I'm really sorry for stealing the idea that that's a cute thing that you would do in a bunny suit, but that's the only picture I could come up with. And here's, Karen Reed. If that's even a real case, I'm not sure that's even a real case, So there are a lot of profile identifiers and characteristics that are going to become abundantly apparent soon. Unfortunately, the computer's creating sociopathic tendencies faster than I can create profile characteristics. So now the computer may shape an understanding through YouTube for you that changes all of your behavior from being something real in response to what happened to being something very, very different. So what is real joy? And there's at least some real happiness there. But ironically, this person's smile maybe looks a little bit more genuine. And there's absolutely no smile here at all. Do you see? And you can paint that onto any face. This person is happy. This person is sad and empty. I'm not saying Massimo was inappropriate. I'm saying he objectified Olivia Jade in the eye color of her sister. And I can't trust that the FBI is going to do the job that they need to do if they investigate themselves. So the abstract is Picasso. Thank you for your time.